Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield, your source for trusted analysis. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Justin Trudeau and a whole cadre of politicians made an announcement today in Montreal about opening a satellite manufacturing outfit in Quebec. Of course, my first thought was, well, they need to be throwing all kinds of money at Quebec because they're not doing well in the polls, and without Quebec, the Liberal Party will essentially cease to exist. All indications are that they've lost Southern Ontario, so all they have left is the seats that they get out of Quebec. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking in your mind that they've just had a change of heart, that they woke up after 8 years and decided that they were going to fix this mess that they've caused, that they've created, after telling you for years that you didn't know what you were doing, and you didn't know what you were talking about, and if you dared to question them, you were some sort of far-right Trump extremist, which I don't even know that they exist, but that's what the Liberal Party would say to you nonetheless. Just remember that they will promise you, they're like a sailor who just come in at a port. They'll make all kinds of promises. They're like a teenage boy on prom night. They will tell you anything you want to hear. Then somebody asked him about Ukraine, and the posture and the language that come out of him was enough for me to decide that this would be the topic for this video. Before I get into it, though, I would ask you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I get a lot of censorship. My videos will do fine, and then all of a sudden they'll just drop right off the edge of the cliff. And there's only one reason that happens. So every time that you like it or every time that you make a comment, it convinces the algorithm that other people might want to see it, people who might not necessarily show up in their feed. So the reason that I know that this is a bit of a theater, a bit of a stage, and it makes you wonder what direction the Liberal Party is going to take this is because the question was asked by CP, Canadian Press, who are completely in the pocket of the Liberal Party and all of their overlords. Now, I'm going to leave the question, and then I'll let you hear his long-winded answer, and then I will tell you exactly why I believe this answer to be that of someone who is so naive and juvenile to not even understand the implication or the ramifications of the actions they're referring to and the words coming out of their mouth.
Mr. Trudeau, Vladimir Putin says Russia will be at war with NATO if Ukraine uses long-range missiles deep into Russia. How far into Russia do you think Ukraine should be able to strike?
Vladimir Putin is striking regularly in the heart of Ukraine. He's sending missiles and bombs at hospitals, at daycare centers, at families and communities across Ukraine. And it was his choice to invade a neighboring sovereign nation. His choice to start this conflict, and it could be his choice to end it tomorrow. All he has to do is pull back his troops into Russian territory. But he won't do that. He is not just trying to remove any choice that Ukrainians have around where they want their future to go, remove their independence, remove their sovereignty. He's trying to deeply destabilize the international rules-based order that protects us all, not just in every democracy around the world, but in all countries around the world. Any country with a neighbor with a slightly larger army should be worried if it suddenly becomes allowed to invade and redraw lines on the map. And that's why Canada and others are unequivocal that Ukraine must win this war against Russia. And we will continue to be there to support Ukraine. And yes, Canada fully supports Ukraine using long-range weaponry to prevent and interdict Russia's continued ability to degrade Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and mostly to kill innocent civilians in their unjust war.
The degree of childishness in that response was clearly written by an individual who not only has no idea what war is, but has never even read a book about it. They might have got their interpretation out of it from, I don't know, some far left Disney show or something to that effect, or romanticized in poetry. First of all, the question, the term, the word you got to hear is long range. Ukraine, though large, is not being hit with long range Russian intercontinental ballistic missiles. Ukraine is getting a lot of their guns, bullets, machinery, and men from countries outside of Ukraine. So now Ukraine wants to take American missiles, the Jazz, I think it's called, or something to that effect, which will go like 700 kilometers. That's essentially, you can shoot it from Ottawa and skip over Toronto. And you want me to say to you that that's a great idea. Let's do that. Let's escalate this war even more because, you know, they're getting bombs thrown on them in the middle of Ukraine. But if you want the Russians to use their long-range missiles, then they would be able to hit targets in Sweden, Finland. They would be able to, because that's where the supplies are coming from. What you want me to say is, yeah, it's a good idea for the Ukraine to fire missiles at where the Russian supplies and manufacturing is. And I suppose that, you know, on a scale of on a standing of war, I concur. However, to say that you're going to draw NATO into it, to say that you're going to draw Canada, which can't even, I mean, if Russia landed, you know, 3 guys with slingshots in alert, we probably would have a hard time pushing them out. You have made such a mess of our own military. So really what you mean is you want to send more money to the Americans or to where the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, where that money gets promptly washed and then distributed for more weapons. We've sent enough weapons. We've sent enough money. We've sent too much money. And to say that recently they just announced that they were sending some stuff that's been laying around since the 90s that had been scheduled to be destroyed, but it's been sitting there for 20, 30 years anyway, over to Ukraine. Because, you know, anything that go boom. And that's the reality on the ground. That these long range missiles are, you know, sexy to talk about and they look good on TV. But in the end, you're slopping and moving forward through the ground, right? And the Ukrainians went into Kirks and then realized that it did nothing. It has gained them no foothold. It has gained them no tactical advantage. So much so that the Soros guy had to go over to Ukraine and juggle the parliament and kick out all kinds of people and make all kinds of changes because they're losing. That's how I know that they're losing, because this guy who's actually pulling the strings went over there and made all kinds of adjustments. Yet on the ground in the Donbass region, a region that has been in dispute since around 900 AD. So you want us to stick our nose in what's a regional conflict. Then you say that it could affect democracy, but Ukraine doesn't have a democracy. They suspended parliamentary elections. They're in their 6th year or 5th year or something without an election. They're in a dictatorship. So now you want to give a dictator weapons to fire at another sovereign nation because they're having a regional conflict in the Donbass region. But we can't give those same weapons to Israel, who is surrounded on all sides by armies that are larger. You said, well, any country rules based where the army next door to it is bigger, it could be could be in trouble, could be worried about it. Those were your words. So by your own words, that extends to Taiwan, that extends to Israel, that extends to Yemen, that extends to so many countries that I can think of just off the top of my head. Don't even get me started on the civil war in Libya. But of course, you're just talking, right? It's this flowery talk to make it seem like the world's going to see you as somebody tough and important and all of the rest of that. Our military is in a shambles. Any of the real hardcore fighting people that you think you can rely on do not trust you. They do not like you. They do not want to fight for you. That's their words, not mine. So you want to turn around and say, no, we're going to create this situation where NATO might now line up on the border, drawing in China, Belarus, Iran. Iran. That's to name a few. Sweden, Finland, Norway. What do you want to do? You want to take these countries that are already in chaos and you want to put them on a war footing? You want to put England and Canada and the United States into what? Into a war with Russia? Well, unfortunately, because of your actions of destabilizing all that they're worth, that will turn into nothing. That will just completely and utterly shatter every one of those countries. That will remove all of the legitimate governments, and it will turn every single solitary land that I just mentioned into a piece wheel, a piecework of this guy versus that person versus this person. Maybe that's your intention. Maybe that's your plan. Maybe you just want to talk tough. Maybe you want to put Canada into a war so that you can suspend Parliament. I don't know 100%. But I do know that your words are, Vladimir Putin heard you say that stuff. He laughed at you. Not because you talk tough and you shouldn't have, and not because you don't understand the first thing about, army, military, or the region. But because you talk like you are trying to settle some schoolyard fight. There's no diplomacy in your words. There's no understanding of the 1,000-year problems of these regions. There's no comprehension of escalation. When you went into Kursk, now you've escalated it, right? Now you say, oh, he can leave Donbass anytime he wants. All he has to do, and the war will be over. But what about pulling the Ukrainians out of Kursk? What about all of the Swedish military that has come to the border? What about the Belarusians that are lining up? What about so many different things that I could mention? I don't for one second believe that he's bombing daycare centers. I mean, every time I turn on the news, I'm seeing how the Ukrainians have pulled the children out. But he is hitting infrastructure, absolutely, just like you want to do. He's hitting infrastructure. The difference is that he's not using long-range intercontinental ballistic missiles. He's using short-range, which means, for all of you who may not understand, the payload. Because it's a shorter range, it doesn't carry, a half a megaton of whatever, or, that's an exaggeration, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. The bigger the missile, the bigger the boom. So now you want to start firing in missiles that'll go 700 miles. 700 kilometers, never mind. And then what? Then the Russian says, well, that missile was fired from the edge of Poland. Whoops, just dropped a bomb on Warsaw. Or something to that effect, right? I mean, that's what we're looking at here. That's the idea. That's what escalation looks like. What I don't hear from you, Mr. Trudeau, is you sitting down with them and hammering out a deal. That's what you need to do. You need to sit down and hammer out a deal. You have to make sure Ukraine maintains a corridor to the Black Sea so they can get their wheat out of there without having to pass it through the Russian border. And then you have to realize that anybody that hasn't already fled the region probably identifies with being Russian. Get everybody to sign on the dotted line. Get Russia to give them a few dollars to make everybody happy. Shut the thing down and let's move on. But because you lack the ability to and the maturity to understand what's required, you just want to escalate and elevate and talk a big talk. It's embarrassing. Do you think that I have a good point, or do you think that I don't know what I'm talking about? You let me know down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you next time.